Hi guys, I hope you can hear me. Yes, good morning. Today we are going to be starting with a new chapter. Yes, I hope I am audible. Yeah, okay. So last time we were done with the Sale of Goods Act and Contract Act. We had completed everything over there in the Sale of Goods Act. I think so. Now open your Banking Regulation Act and insurance laws. So out of the 70% the syllabus of yours, what we are left with is banking and insurance laws and operations, and we are left with Partnership Act and LLP. Okay. Yes. So let us first start with the Partnership Act. Let us finish the Partnership Act, then we will have a look at banking regulations and insurance laws. Yes. So in your material, open Partnership Act. Okay. So what is partnership? What do you mean by partnership? If all of you can hear me, just drop me a message, no, because otherwise I would not be sure whether I'm audible or not. Okay. So currently what we are going to be talking about is Partnership Act 1932 and LLP Act 2008. So these are the two acts we are going to be talking about. So guys, what does Partnership Act 1932 do? What does Partnership Act 1932 do? Okay, so have a look. Partnership Act 1932 is an act for the purposes of what? For the purposes of regulating the businesses which are going to be done in partnership. For the purposes of regulating businesses which are going to be done in what? Which are going to be done in partnership. So guys, what is a partnership? What is a partnership? Partnership is a means of doing business. It's a means of doing business for the purposes of making profit. Okay, okay, which is carried on by two or more persons, which is carried on by two or more persons. Okay, when all of them are acting for all, when all of them are acting for all, or one of them or a few of them acts for all, acts for all. So they are kind of treated like a unit. They are kind of treated like a unit wherein one partner can act for behalf of one or more partners. Okay. So what is partnership, guys? What is partnership? Partnership is nothing but a means of doing what? A means of doing business. Okay. Business for what? Business for the purposes of making profit. Carried on by two or more persons acting for all, or any one of them or a few of them acting for all. Okay, that is the meaning of partnership. Now a partnership, doing the business in partnership, will have certain essential characteristics. Can you see the essential characteristics over here? What would be the essential characteristics of partnership? Yes, have a look. What is the essential characteristic of a partnership? It is an association of two or more persons. It is an association of two or more persons. Okay, then there is an agreement between persons. Then the business which is carried on will be a which business? Lawful business. Then there is sharing of profits. Okay, and then there is the concept of mutual agency, unlimited liability, utmost good faith, restriction on transfer of interest. So we will try and understand these points in detail. Okay. So tell me guys, for doing partnership, can you do it alone? Can you do it alone? Answer is no, you cannot do it alone. Okay. Answer is no, you cannot do it alone. Okay. For doing partnership, minimum number of partners required are two. Okay. The maximum number of partners which are going to be required for the purposes of doing partnership are totally 50. Okay, Above 50, it will become an illegal association and you will have to form a company. So the current limit, okay, I think over here the limit has not yet been updated, okay, but according to the Companies Act 2013, the maximum number of partners in partnership, in any kind of partnership, including banking or otherwise, is limited to 50, is limited to 50 partners. Okay, yes, beyond that you will have to form a company. So that is why minimum to maximum 50 would be the number of partners. I think over here the limit has not been updated. You can have it updated because that is the limit as per the Companies Act, current Companies Act, that is the limit. Okay, so that is the point. So there is an association of minimum 2 persons, maximum 50 persons. They are coming together. For what purpose are they coming together? For the purposes of doing business. For the purposes of doing business, they are coming together. Okay, so that is the logic of having a partnership. That is the logic of having a partnership. Okay, so now who can be a partner of a partnership business? Can a firm be a partner? No. Individual can be a partner. Company can be a partner. Okay. But a firm cannot become a partner of another partnership firm. Okay, because as per the Indian Partnership Act 1932, okay, for a person to be a partner of the partnership firm, the person has to be a separate entity. Okay, a partnership firm is not considered as a separate legal entity. A partnership firm is not considered as a separate legal entity. So that is why a partnership firm cannot become a partner of another partnership firm. Okay, because partnership firm itself is not a separate legal entity, so it cannot become a partner of another partnership firm. Okay, so a firm cannot become a partner of another firm, though its partners can join any other firm as partners. Okay, partners can become partners of another firm, but the firm as such cannot become a partner of another firm. Okay, so it is an association of 2 or more persons. Then there has to be an agreement between the persons. There has to be an agreement between the persons for the purposes of what? For the purposes of doing the partnership business. Otherwise, how will you define the rights and liabilities of the partners? It is going to be difficult. So that is why they have specifically stated that there should be an agreement. There should be an agreement between the persons in order to set up a partnership. Okay. So partnership is formed as an express or implied agreement between 2 or more persons. Okay, and section 5 provides that the relationship of partnership arises from the formation of a contract and not from status or birth. Okay, like say in case you're talking about a Hindu undivided family. Okay, Hindu undivided family business is the one which is done. Okay, and you become a partner, you kind of become a person who is a part of the HUF business by birth. But it doesn't work like that for partnership. For partnership, there has to be an agreement between the partners. Okay, for partnership, there has to be an agreement between the partners. Without the partnership agreement, you cannot really start a partnership business. This agreement can be an express agreement, this agreement can be an implied agreement, but there has to be an agreement. There has to be a valid contract between the partners in order to start the which business? In order to start the partnership business. Okay, now going ahead. Next point, you can create a partnership only for the purposes of doing which business? Only for the purposes of doing lawful business. You can start the partnership only for the purposes of doing lawful business. A partnership can be formed only for the an association created for charitable, religious, or social purpose cannot be regarded as partnership because there does not exist any business. Okay, so what have they stated over here for lawful business? For the lawful business point, they have stated that partnership can be formed only for the purposes of which business? Lawful business. Okay, can you create partnership for charity? Not allowed. Okay, so you have to do business. And what kind of business should it be? Obviously, lawful business. You cannot do an unlawful business with the help of partnership. Okay, now going ahead. The next point is saying another compulsory thing which has to be there, with respect to partnership business, is the sharing of profits. See, sharing of losses is not an essential. Sharing of losses is not an essential, but sharing of profits is an essential. Sharing of profits is an essential. So this is the essence of partnership. The agreement between the partners must be to share the profits of the business. The agreement between the partners must be to share the profits of the business. There can be no partnership without the intention of mutual gain. There can be no partnership without the intention of mutual gain. So who has to gain? Everybody has to gain. Everybody has to get something from the partnership. So sharing of profits with all the partners, is it essential? Yes. See, sharing of losses is not essential, but sharing of profits, is that essential? Yes or no? Answer is yes. Sharing of profits will be essential. Okay. Now going ahead. Concept of what? Concept of mutual agency. Now, what is the concept of mutual agency going to say? The concept of mutual agency says that every partner is an agent of the other partner. Every partner is an agent of the other partner. The partnership business, as I told you, is carried out by all of them acting for all, or a few of them acting for all. Like that, the business is carried on. So every partner in a partnership business is an agent of the other partner. Okay, so if I do something for the partnership business, are the other partners also liable? Yes, if it is a lawful act, other partners are also liable. If it is within my authority, then other partners are also liable. Okay, so that is the point which they're trying to make over here. Okay, which point? Which point? The point with respect to mutual agency. So the point says that partnership is governed by the agency relationship amongst the partners. Section 4 clearly emphasizes that partnership business can be carried on by all the partners or by any of them acting on behalf of the other partners. Okay. In other words, every partner is an implied agent of the other partners and of the firm. Every partner is an implied agent of the other partners and of the firm. Okay. So every partner is an agent of the other partner also and of the firm also. Okay. So if I am doing something for the partnership, our partnership is for the purposes of, say, a restaurant business. We are running a restaurant business in partnership. So for that hotel business, if I get some vegetables, okay, for cooking, will the partnership firm be liable for it? Yes. Will the other partners be also liable? Yes. Similarly, if the other partner is getting something, say he's getting some other ingredients for the hotel business. He's getting oil for frying the food and all. He's getting kitchen utensils for the purposes of partnership. Now over here, if the other partners are also getting something, am I also liable if I'm the partner? Yes. So partners act for each other. Partners will act for each other. That is the concept of which agency? Mutual agency. That is the concept of mutual agency. Partners are going to be acting for each other. Partners are going to be acting for each other. Okay, concept of mutual agency. Okay, so the partners are agent for each other and principals for themselves. Okay, their relationship is governed by the law of agency. Fine. So that is the concept of mutual agency with respect to the partners. Then what about the liability of the partners? What about the liability of the partners? See, the liability of the partners is always going to be unlimited liability. Okay, the liability of the partners is always going to be which type of liability? Unlimited liability. Now, what do you mean by unlimited liability? Unlimited liability means okay, if the partnership business goes in a loss, if the partnership business goes in a loss, then okay, will the partners be personally liable? Will the partners be personally liable? Yes or no? Answer is yes, the partners will also be personally liable. Okay, yes, means if tomorrow partnership business goes in a loss, if partnership business does not have sufficient money to pay off its liabilities, can you go to the partner's house and sell their assets also? Can you go and sell their personal assets also? Answer is yes. Okay, it means their liability is not limited to the business liability. Their liability will be personal also. That is the meaning of which liability? That is the meaning of unlimited liability. That is the meaning of unlimited liability. I hope that point is clear. Yes. So the liability of the firm is not limited to their interests only. They are jointly and severally liable to an unlimited extent for the debts of the partnership firm. In case the assets of the firm are insufficient to pay the debts in full, the personal property of each partner can be attached to pay the creditors of the firm. Can be attached to pay the creditors of the firm. Okay, so that is about unlimited liability. Then going ahead. Next point is talking about utmost good faith. Okay, I hope the unlimited liability point is clear. Yes, everyone. Okay. Oh, thank you, Divin. After so many days you have come. Okay. Going ahead, after unlimited liability, the next point is going to be talking about which faith? Utmost good faith. It is going to be talking about utmost good faith. Okay. Now, what do you mean by utmost good faith? Utmost good faith means that the partners should carry on the business to the greatest common advantage. The partners are bound to carry on the business of the firm to the greatest common advantage. Now, what do you mean by greatest common advantage? Greatest common advantage means they have to be just and faithful to each other and to render true accounts and full information of all the things affecting the firm or any partner or his legal representatives. So partners have to carry on business to the greatest common advantage. They have to be carrying on to the business to the greatest common advantage. Okay. Yes, so that is the point which they have made over there, that all the partners of the firm should be carrying on the business to the greatest common advantage. Greatest common advantage means what? You should carry on the business not only for your own benefit, but also for the benefit of the other people, also for the benefit of the other partners. So you should think of the advantage of everybody and you will have to carry on the business. You'll have to think of the advantage of everybody and you will have to carry on the business. Okay, fine. Going ahead. Next point is talking about restriction on what? Restriction on transfer of interest. Restriction on transfer of interest. Now, what is this point saying with respect to restriction on transfer of interest? So the point says that if you are a partner, okay, you cannot transfer your share. See, I am a partner. I'm saying instead of me, some other person is going to be the partner. So instead of me, say another person, Mr. X is going to be the partner. Can I do that? No, I cannot do that. They have entered into partnership with me. Okay, they want me to be the partner. They do not necessarily trust the other person. Okay, they do not necessarily trust the other person. So that is why, can I transfer my interest in the partnership just like that? Can I transfer my interest in the partnership just like that? Yes or no? Answer is no, I cannot do that. That is not allowed. Okay. So without prior consent of all the other partners, okay, without prior consent of all the other partners, no partner can transfer his share in the partnership. As per section 29, a partner cannot it is in the firm to an outsider so as to make him the partner of the firm. Okay, so what is section 29 saying? Section 29 is saying that a partner cannot assign his rights and interests in the firm to an outsider so as to make him a partner of the firm. Okay, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. You cannot give your right to an outsider to make him a partner of the firm. That is not allowed. Okay, if you have to do that, you will have to take the consent of. If you have to do that, you will have to take the consent of all the other partners. If all the other partners agree, then you can transfer your interest to somebody else. But otherwise, this is not possible. Okay, fine. Going ahead. He can, however, assign his share in the profits and share in the assets of the firm. If he wants, he can give away his profits, he can give away his assets in the firm, but he cannot make another person a partner without the consent of all other partners, because the other partners have to trust this new person also, right? So because this other partner has to, the other partners will have to trust this new person also. That is why what they have stated over here, what they have stated over here is consent of all the partners. Consent of all the partners is going to be required in case transfer of interest is going to happen. Okay, fine. I hope that point is clear. Restriction on transfer of interest. Yes. Next one. Okay, so we have completed all the essential characteristics of partnership. Yes, association of two or more persons, agreement between persons, lawful business, sharing of profits, concept of mutual agency, unlimited liability, utmost good faith, restriction on transfer of interest. Yes, these are the points which we have completed. Okay, guys. Yes. Now going ahead, let us talk about what is the true test of partnership. The true test of partnership is the concept of mutual agency. See, there should be sharing of profits. Sharing of profits is also very important. But the most important thing is the concept of mutual agency. If there is a concept of mutual agency, then in that situation, there is partnership. Okay. So the true test of partnership is the concept of which agency? Is the concept of mutual agency. Okay, so let us have a look. See, what are they saying? As per section 6, in determining whether a group of persons is or is not a firm, or whether a person is or is not a partner of a firm, shall be verified by the real intention as is prevailing between the parties. Okay. Yes. So real intention could be made out from mutual agency. This is the mode of determining the existence of the partnership. So how will you find out? Whether there is partnership or not? You will have to see their real intention. Okay. Real intention, real relation, you will have to check. Okay. Partnership is going to be determined. Okay, by the real intention among the partners, and relationship must show the existence of mutual agency. Okay, real relation you will have to check, and the relationship should show what? Concept of existence of what? Mutual agency. If there is mutual agency, there will be partnership. Okay, so that is the point they have made over there. Okay, going ahead. Sharing of profits is prima facie evidence. Okay, sharing of profits is which evidence? Prima facie evidence, but it is not conclusive evidence of partnership. So the most the main evidence over there, okay, is sharing of profits. Is it a prima facie evidence? Yes, but is it the main evidence? No, main evidence is the real relationship between the parties. If real relationship shows partnership, then there is partnership. If there is concept of mutual agency, then there is partnership. Because sometimes you share profits with people who are not even the owners. Okay, so sometimes, see, if we are co-owners of a flat, we are sharing the rent of the flat, we are sharing the profit out of that. So now over here we are just co-owners. Okay, we are not what do you say, we are not the persons who are partners. Okay, so because for partnership there has to be a business, and the business has to be carried on through the concept of what? Through the concept of mutual agency. If you're doing it through mutual agency, then in that situation, what will happen? There will be partnership. So you will have to check the real relation between the partners, and you will have to check whether there is existence of mutual agency or not. If these 2 points are there, then in that case, there will be a partnership. Just sharing of profits does not show partnership. Okay. So the sharing of profits is prima facie evidence, but it is not conclusive evidence of the partnership. Okay. Fine. That is what they have told you over here. If you are just joint owners, okay, you are not partners. If you are a money lender who is receiving some share of the profits, then you are just lent money and getting some part of the profits. You are not partners. Okay. Servant of agent receiving a share of the profits. Widow or the child of a deceased partner. Seller of goodwill who is given the share in the profits of the business. These are all persons who are not considered as partners. Okay, these are persons who are not considered as partners. Okay, going ahead. Who cannot become partners? Minor cannot become a partner. Okay, he can be admitted to the benefits of the partnership. He can be admitted to the benefits of the partnership. Okay, see, because some people might say, oh, in 12th standard we learned that minor partner is there. So minor partner is a misnomer, guys. Minor partner is a misnomer. There is no concept called as a minor partner. A minor can be admitted to what? He can be admitted to the benefits of the partnership. He can be admitted to the benefits of the partnership. Okay. Yes. So minor cannot become a partner in a firm, but with the consent of all the partners, he can be admitted to the benefits of the partnership. Okay. So can a minor become a partner in the firm? Minor cannot become a partner in the firm. Can he be admitted to the benefits of the partnership? Can he be given the benefits of the partnership? Yes or no? Answer is yes. Okay, he can be given the benefits of the partnership. But if you are giving him the benefits of the partnership, make sure, okay, that you are taking the consent of all the partners. So guys, remember this, because sometimes you have learned that minor partner is possible. So remember that a minor cannot be a partner. Remember that a minor cannot become a partner in a firm. Okay, but can he be admitted to the benefits of the partnership? Yes or no? Answer is yes. He can be admitted to the benefits of the partnership with the consent of all the other partners. Fine. So let us have a look at the point. A minor cannot become a partner in a firm. Okay, but with the consent of whom? All the partners. Okay, he can be admitted to what? He can be admitted to the benefits of the partnership. Now going ahead. Next concept is talking about an alien enemy. Now, who is an alien enemy? An alien enemy is a person. An alien enemy is a person who is from a foreign country. Who is from a which country? Foreign country. Okay. Yes. A person who is from a foreign country with whom your country is at war. So say, for example, India-Pakistan goes for a war. Then any person from Pakistan would become an alien enemy. Can you enter into a partnership agreement with an alien enemy? Is it possible or not possible? Answer is this is not possible. So always remember, you cannot enter into a partnership. Okay, with a alien enemy. So an alien enemy cannot enter into a partnership with an Indian subject. Alien friend, it is possible, or what? Yes, alien friend, it is possible. Okay, but alien enemy, guys, can he enter into a partnership with an Indian citizen? Allowed or not allowed? Not allowed, never. Okay, because alien enemy is a person from a foreign country with whom your country is at war. So a person from a foreign country with whom your country is at war will be considered as a alien enemy. Can you enter into a contract with an alien enemy? With respect to partnership or otherwise, you cannot enter into a contract with an alien enemy. So you cannot enter into a partnership also with an alien enemy. Fine. Going ahead. Then can you enter into a partnership agreement with a person of unsound mind? You cannot. Again, liability in case of partnership is limited or unlimited? Is unlimited. So if the liability is unlimited, the person with whom you are entering into the partnership agreement should be in a position to take that liability. If he is not in a position to take that liability, how partnership will work? Partnership cannot work. Okay. So person of unsound mind, does he have any liability? Yes or no? Answer is no. Person of unsound mind has got no liability. That is why he cannot enter into a contract of partnership. Okay. Yes. Done. The next point is talking about a corporation. Okay. Yes. Guys, and a company, logically, see, when they are saying a corporation over here, what they are trying to say over here is a company. Can a company enter into a contract of partnership? Answer is yes, because company is a separate legal entity. Company is a separate legal entity, so it can enter into a contract of partnership. Okay, but can two partnership firms enter into a contract of partnership? Not possible. Why not possible? Because a partnership firm is not a separate legal entity. Because a partnership firm is not a separate legal entity. That is the point they have made over there, which is saying that two partnership firms cannot enter into a partnership with each other because a firm is not a, because the firm is not a which person? Because the firm is not a the firm is not a legal person. Okay. Similarly, a partnership cannot, a firm cannot enter, cannot be partners in another firm. So partnership cannot enter into partnership. Sorry, partnership firm cannot enter into partnership, but a company can enter into a partnership because company is a separate legal entity. Partnership firm is not a separate legal entity, so it cannot enter into a, so it cannot enter into a, so it cannot enter into a partnership. Okay, so that is the point. Here they have given you differences between partnership and HUF. You'll have to go through the differences, and between partnership and co-ownership. Yes, so you can go through the differences. Now we will have a look at types of partners. Okay, we'll have a look at types of partners. Okay, we have a sleeping or dormant partner. We have nominal partner. We have partner for profit, sub partner, partner by estoppel, or holding out. Okay, then we have minor partner. But over here, when they are saying minor partner, when they are talking about a minor who is admitted to the benefits of partnership. Okay. When you're talking about a minor partner, what are we talking about? A minor who is admitted to the benefits of the partnership. Okay. So now have a look. See, what is the point which is being made over here? Which are the types of partners? See, one of the partner over here is the actual partner or ostensible partner. He enters into a partnership by contract and takes an active part in the management of the business. Okay, he is an agent of the other partners in the ordinary course of business of the firm and binds himself. Okay, other partners vis-a-vis third party. So one is an actual partner. Actual partner means what? Everybody knows that he is a partner of the firm. He's an actual partner. He's actually working there also, and everybody knows him also. Then he's an actual partner, or also called as an active partner. Okay, then you will have another partner called as sleeping or dormant partner. Now, what is the speciality of the sleeping or dormant partner? A partner who contributes to the capital and shares the profit, but does not take an active part in the conduct of the business is called as a sleeping or dormant partner. Is called as a sleeping or which partner? Dormant partner. So somebody who is contributing to the capital and shares of the profits, but is not taking an active part in the conduct of the business is called as a which partner? Sleeping or dormant partner is called as a sleeping or dormant partner. Okay, so who is a sleeping or dormant partner? He's a partner who does what? Shares the profit but does not take an active part in the conduct of the business. Who shares the profit but does not take an active part in the conduct of the business is called as a sleeping or dormant partner. Okay. Yes, so that is the point with respect to sleeping or dormant partner. Okay, next point is talking about a which partner? Nominal partner. A partner who neither contributes any capital nor shares in the profits or takes part in the conduct of the business, but simply lends his name to the firm is called as a nominal partner. So what is the difference over here? Sleeping partner was the one who contributed the capital, but he is not taking any active part in the conduct of the business. So nobody knows if he is there, if he is not there, he's sleeping. Okay, he's put his money, but currently he's not taking an active part in the business, so he is sleeping. Okay, nobody knows he is there. Okay, nobody knows that he is there. Publicly, nobody is aware that this particular partner is in existence. So that kind of a partner is called as a which partner? Sleeping or dormant partner. That kind of a partner is called as a which partner? Sleeping or dormant partner. Okay, he is liable for all the deals of the firm, but his relationship is not disclosed to the public. That was a sleeping or dormant partner. The exact reverse of this is a nominal partner. Everybody is aware of his name, okay, but he has not contributed any capital, nor is he taking any part in the business. He's only giving his name. He's only giving his name over here. So that kind of a partner is called as a, that kind of a partner will be called as a nominal partner. Okay, so somebody famous, you're starting a new partnership firm. You're taking the name of somebody famous. Okay, somebody famous like some film star or something. You're taking their name and starting a partnership firm. Okay, so that film star is not going to actually come and do business with you. Okay, it's just going to give you a name, give you a name, his name. Oh, so and so film star is associated with so and so partnership firm. So that kind of a partner will be called as a, that kind of a partner will be called as a which partner? Nominal partner. Okay, so a partner who neither contributes any capital nor shares in the profit or takes part in the conduct of the business, but simply lends his name to the firm, is called as a which partner? It's called as a nominal partner. Okay, will be called as a nominal partner. He, along with the other partners, is liable to third parties for all the debts of the firm. Okay, it's just giving his name, not putting in money, not going to be liable, not participating, nominal partner. Okay, then you have partner for profits only. See, there are going to be some partners, who are going to be taking only the profit. They will not share the losses. Why are they not sharing losses? Because that is the agreement which is made between them, that they will not be liable for losses, they will be taking only the profits. So that kind of a partner is called as partner for profits only. So have a look. What's the point saying? A partner who shares in the profits but agreed by all the partners will not be liable for the losses is known as a partner for profits. He is liable to third parties for all the debts of the firm. Okay, so that kind of a partner is called as a partner for profits only. Okay, he is going to be liable only for profits but not for the losses. With other partners, he is not going to share the losses. He is only going to share the profits. Partner for profits only. Okay. With respect to third parties, can the third parties make him liable? Yes, third parties can make him liable, but can the other partners make him liable? Answer is no, other partners cannot make him liable. So this kind of a partner is called as a partner for profits only. Okay. Yes. Now, next partner is a sub-partner. Which partner are we talking about? Sub-partner. Now, partner of the partner will be called as a which partner? Sub-partner. Okay. Okay. But over here, guys, legally, appointing a sub-partner is not really possible. Okay, because there is no provision like that for appointing a sub-partner. You can enter into a separate contract. With a person and say that that particular person is your which partner? Sub-partner. Is that possible? Answer is yes, that is possible. Okay, but is sub-partner a legally recognized concept? It is not. Okay, but a partner can enter into an agreement with the another person saying that you are going to be my partner. I am going to share my profits with you. So then that person becomes a which partner? That person becomes a sub-partner. Okay, so have a look. When a partner shares his share of profits derived from the firm with a which person? Third person. With a third person. That third person is called as a which partner? That third person is called as a sub-partner. A sub-partner is not a partner of the firm. A sub-partner is not a partner of the firm. He neither has any right against the firm nor is he liable for any liability for the debts of the firm. Okay, he is not liable. He does not have any right. He does not have any right against the firm, nor is he liable for any liability or the debts of the firm. That kind of a partner is called as a which partner? Sub-partner. Okay, so partner of the partner with whom the original partner has agreed to share some, what do you say, profits and all, will be called as a which partner? Will be called as a sub-partner. Okay, so that is sub-partner. Then you have the concept of partner by estoppel or holding out. Now listen, a very interesting concept, partner by estoppel or holding out. Listen, in case of a partner by estoppel, okay, say there is a partnership firm ABC. Okay, yes, B is saying that Mr. Y is also our partner. Now Mr. Y, okay, is actually not a partner, but B is saying that, oh, Y is a partner. Now over here, Y is not stopping B from saying that, and this is heard by another banker, say Axis Bank has heard this, and on the basis of this representation, okay, that Mr. Y is the partner, Mr. Y is the partner, they have been saying that. On the basis of that, Axis Bank gives a loan to ABC, thinking that Mr. Y is also a partner. Now over here, what they have stated is that if Mr. Y allows himself to be represented as a partner of the partnership firm without actually being a partner of the partnership firm. In such a situation, what will happen? In such a situation, what will happen is that Axis Bank tomorrow can hold Mr. Y liable because such a representation was made to Axis Bank. Now Mr. Y cannot go behind on the representation. When B was saying, oh, he's our partner, that time you should have stopped him. That time you did not stop him. So now, can you say anything to stop him? Answer is no. Now you cannot say anything because principle of estoppel says that now once you have, represented something, you cannot go back on your words. That is the principle of what? Estoppel. That is the principle of estoppel. Okay, point clear? Sorted? So principle of estoppel says that once you have represented something, once you have made a particular kind of representation, you are not allowed to go back on your words. Yes? So that was the principle of estoppel. Okay, this is also called as principle of holding out. Okay, yes, this is also called as principle of holding out. So over here, if because of your behavior, you are trying to show that you are a partner of the partnership firm, and if this representation is believed by a third party, and the third party on the basis of that gives a loan to the partnership firm, then you will also become liable. Okay, this means you have become a partner by what? Estoppel, or a partner by holding out. Okay, so read the point. Sometimes a person becomes a partner not because of an agreement, but by his conduct. Not because of an agreement, but by his conduct. This happens when a person is not a partner, but represents to the outside world that he is a partner in a firm. Okay. If afterwards he denies that he is a partner to avoid the liability, then he is stopped or prevented from denying the truth. Okay, so when a person who is not the partner is representing, oh, that I am a partner, or he's allowing others to be represented that, oh, I am the partner, then he will become a partner by estoppel or holding out, because the outsiders would think, no, that he is a partner. So over here, he will become a partner by estoppel or holding out, and he would be liable, for his actions. He would be liable for his actions to the partnership firm. Okay, yes, and to the outsider also. He'll be liable for his actions to the outsiders. Okay, yes. In our example, can Axis Bank hold Mr. Y liable also? Yes. Was Mr. Y actually a partner? No. But still, can he be made liable? Answer is yes, he still can be made liable. Okay, so that is the concept of principle of estoppel. Okay, so that is the point. Done. Yes, partner by estoppel or holding out, sub-partner, partner for profit, nominal partner, sleeping or dormant partner, active partner. I hope these points are clear. Yes, everyone. Done, no? Any doubts till here? Can we go ahead? Yes, can we go ahead? Okay. Now let us have a look at details of, the details of the minor partner. Okay, so now we discussed, guys, minor cannot be admitted to the, minor can only be admitted to the benefits of the partnership. Can a minor actually become a partner? Can a minor actually become a partner? No, he can only be admitted to what? He can only be admitted to the benefits of the partnership. He can only be admitted to what? Benefits of the partnership. Okay. So that is the concept of a which partner? Minor partner. That is the concept of a which partner? Minor partner. Minor partner is someone who's admitted only to the benefits of the partnership. He's admitted only to the benefits of the partnership. Okay. Yes. So now what is the speciality of this minor who is admitted to the benefits of the partnership? Now he is not a partner. So can he take part in the conduct of the business of the partnership? No. Okay, he can be given a right to share the profits. He can share the profits. Answer is yes. But can he take part in the conduct of the business of the partnership? No, he cannot take part in the conduct of the business of the partnership. Okay, then he can have access to and inspect any of the books of accounts of the firm except the secrets of the business. Okay. Yes, he can have access to the and inspect the books of accounts. Can he do that? Yes, he can have a right to do that. Okay. Yes. Then he can sue for the firm for his share of the profits and property in the firm, but he can do that at the time when he's, leaving the partnership. He can sue for his rights in the property of the firm. So tell me, guys, can a minor share in the profits? Yes, a minor who's admitted to the benefits of the partnership can share in the profits. Okay. Can he take part in the conduct of the business? Answer is he cannot take part in the conduct of the business. Okay. Yes. Okay, now over here, can he sue the firm for his share in the profits and property of the firm? Answer is yes. Whenever he is leaving the partnership firm, he can sue for the purposes of share of the profits and property of the firm. No problem. Okay, point clear? Going ahead, on attaining majority, what can the minor do? On attaining majority, minor has an option. Okay, he has a right to, go ahead. Okay, he has a right to continue in the partnership and become a partner of the partnership firm. He can continue in the partnership and become a partner in the which firm? Partnership firm. This is after he attains majority. So on attaining majority, minor is given an option. On attaining majority, minor is given an option to become what? A partner in the firm. If he wants, he can become a partner in the firm, or he can give a public notice saying that he is not interested, in being a partner of the firm. Okay. So on attaining majority, a minor has a right to continue in the firm and can become a partner in the firm. Okay, going ahead. He is entitled to get the same share of profits as he was getting before the majority. Can he get the same share of profits also? Answer is yes, he can get the same share of profits also. No problem. So he's entitled to get the same share of profits as he was getting before attaining majority. Done? Clear? Sorted? So that is it. The rights and duties of a minor. Okay, going ahead. Now we are going to be talking about his liabilities kind of in the partnership firm. What would be the liabilities of the minor in the partnership firm? So minor can be held liable only to the extent of his shares and profits and property in the firm. Can he ever become personally liable? Never. He is always a minor. We have learned this in Indian Contract Act 1872 that a minor can never become personally liable. To which parties? To third parties. Minor can never become personally liable to third parties. Then minor, can he be declared as insolvent? Can never be declared as insolvent. Why? Because he doesn't have any liabilities only. If he doesn't have any liabilities, he cannot become insolvent also. Okay, going ahead. On attaining majority, his liability will become unlimited from the date of his admission into the firm. So this is one interesting point. If he decides, see, after becoming a major, he will have two options. After becoming a major, he will have two options. Either he can continue, in the partnership firm. Either he can continue in the partnership firm as a what? As a partner, he can continue in the partnership firm, or he can leave the partnership firm by giving a public notice. So these are the two options which he would have. Okay, these are the two options which he would have. Now over here, if he has these two options, okay, if he decides to become a partner on attaining majority, how much will his liability be? His liability will become unlimited. With effect from the date of his original admission into the partnership firm. His liability is going to become what? Unlimited. Okay, done, clear, sorted? Yes. Going ahead. On attaining majority, if he elects not to become a partner. Then what happens? Okay, then what happens? So have a look. What is the point they are giving over there? They are saying on attaining majority, if he elects not to become a partner, then his rights and liabilities continue to be those of a minor till the date of giving public notice. So main and the most important thing is that if he decides not to become a partner, he will have to give a which notice? He will have to give a public notice saying that he is not interested in being a partner. So he will have to give a public notice. His right in such a situation, if he gives a public notice, his rights and liabilities will continue to be that of a minor. Okay, till the date of giving of the public notice. Plus, his share is not going to be liable for any acts of the firm done after the date of public notice. His share will not be liable for any acts of the firm done after the date of giving of which notice? Public notice. Okay, so once he has given a public notice, nobody can make him liable for the acts of the firm. Done after the date of giving of public notice. So after public notice, is he going to be liable? No. Okay. Yes, his liabilities will continue as that of a minor till the date of giving of public notice. And can he sue the partnership firm for his share of the profits and property of the firm? Yes or no? Answer is yes. He is entitled to sue the partners for his share of property and profits of the firm. Okay, so can he sue for his share of property and profits of the firm? Yes or no? Answer is yes, he can sue. Done. And last point, minor cannot be held liable for the payment of debts incurred during his minority. Okay, so whatever debts the firm has incurred when the minor was just admitted to the benefits of the partnership, he was not a partner. That time, for that time, he cannot be held liable because who was he at that time? He was a minor. Okay, so that is about minor being admitted as a partner, guys. Minor being admitted to the benefits of the partnership. Okay. So can he take part in the conduct of the business? No. Can he get a copy of the books of accounts? Yes. Can he get her share of the profits? Yes. Can he sue for the share of the profits? Yes. When he is leaving the firm, he can sue for the share of the profits. On attaining majority, he will have two options. Which are the two options, guys, which he will be having? Either he will continue in the firm, okay, as a partner, or he can give a public notice and decide not to become a partner. Okay. Yes. Is the minor ever going to be personally liable? No. Is he ever going to be declared insolvent? No. Okay. Yes. On attaining majority, if he wants to become a partner, his liability will become unlimited. From which date? From the date on which he was admitted to the benefits of the partnership. From that date, his liability will become unlimited if he is choosing to be a partner of the partnership firm. So these were the rights and duties of minor in a partnership firm. Yes, the minor part and types of partners is over. Yes, guys, sorted. Okay. The next concept which they have given over here, is the concept of registration of the partnership firm. Okay. So now what is the concept of registration of the partnership firm saying? What is the concept of registration of the partnership firm saying? Okay, partnership firm registration. Okay, the concept says that the partnership firm need not necessarily be registered. But if you do not register the partnership firm, an unregistered partnership firm is going to be subject to some disadvantages. Okay, it is going to be subject to some disadvantages as per section 69. So if your firm is registered, you will have some advantages. If the firm is unregistered, there will be certain disadvantages. Okay, yes. Okay, so that is the point which they are trying to make. Okay, so that is why it is always better. To have a which partnership firm? It is always better to have a registered partnership firm. Okay, so a non-registered firm is subject to some disadvantages as per section 69. Thus, indirectly, the law made for the registration of the firm is desirable. Okay, so registration does not create the partnership. It just notes that there is a partnership in existence. It is not compulsory to register the partnership in all states. Some states have made it compulsory, but most states do not have it as like a compulsion that a partnership firm has to be registered. But Partnership Act 1932 puts some disadvantages, saying that if your partnership firm is unregistered, these XYZ will be the disadvantages. So that is why indirectly they have made the registration of partnership firm kind of like essential, because otherwise you will have so and so disadvantages. Okay. And what is the procedure for registration? You will have to create a partnership deed. It will have some details. You will have to go to the registrar of firms and he will give you a certificate of registration. Okay. And what are the effects of non-registration and what are the disadvantages of non-registration, that we will see in the next class. Okay, guys? Yes, done. Any questions? Any questions? Fine, then we'll wrap up for today over here. Yes. Take care. Have a good day.